All right, so we're going to talk about perpendicular bisectors in this lesson. And we're going to review how to find them on a graph. So let's just remember what is a perpendicular bisector. So there's two parts of that word. So perpendicular, we've known this, it makes a right angle, makes a 90-degree angle. And so you can see from the diagram, the perpendicular part is what makes there be this little perfect corner right here. This blue line makes a perfect corner with the black line. Okay, and then the bisector part, oops, let me spell that correctly. Bisector cuts the line segment into two equal parts. That's what bisect means. So that's why these two lines are here. So this blue line is a perpendicular bisector of the black line because it makes a 90-degree angle with the black line and it cuts the line into two equal parts. So we're going to go over the steps that we learned in class yesterday about how to find it using a graph. And we're just going to do 3 examples to practice. Okay, so example 1. If you want to sketch a graph, this example has the points, let's see, -6 and 20, and 0 and 2 are the 2 points that we're going to use. So first I'm going to go through the steps of what we're going to be doing, and then I'm going to explain what the steps are, and then we're going to actually go through them. So step 1 is find the midpoint of the line. Once I found the midpoint, so that's the bisect part, right? The midpoint is what bisects the line. It breaks it into 2 equal pieces. Then I need to do the perpendicular part. So step 2 is I need to find the perpendicular line the perpendicular line that passes through the midpoint. And that has a few more steps, so I'll show what those steps are. So, what are the steps to find the perpendicular line? First, we need to find the slope. Find the slope of the given line. Then we need to find the opposite reciprocal. And then we can use the slope to find the y-intercept. And just remember, we're going to write our final equation in the form y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Okay, so make sure you have those steps written down because we're going to now go through them and actually do this example. And those are the steps we're going to follow for all of the examples. So I'm going to erase it so I have room to actually solve the problem now. But pause the video and make sure you have the steps broken down clearly so that you can follow them in class tomorrow. Okay. So let's do the steps that we just broke down right here. Okay, so let's start with our midpoint. So step 1. Is the midpoint. So what I like to do, just the same way when we find the slope, is to draw the slope triangle, and then I'm basically going to chop that all in half to figure out the midpoint. So I'm going to draw my little slope triangle, and let's see. So this side is 6, and this side is 18. So half of 6 is 3, so I'm going to go over 3. And half of 18 is 9, so I'm going to go up 9. And that gets me to my midpoint. So my midpoint here is negative 3, 11. I think that looks right. Let me just look at it for a second. So my points are 0 and 2. Yeah, so negative 3 works. And then, perfect. Okay, so I've got my midpoint. So now I'm going to find my, so now I'm going to do step 2, but I'm going to break it down. So step 2 is the perpendicular part. Okay, so I need to find my slope first. So I already have my slope triangle, so my slope is just 18 over 6, and I can see that this line's going down. So my slope is negative 3. So to do my opposite reciprocal, I can recall, like, I can think of it as negative 3 over 1. And so the opposite reciprocal is positive 1/3. So that's going to be my new slope. So here, since I'm giving you the graph, you can just use the graph to finish solving it. So start at this midpoint and go over 1 up 3. Right, that line has a slope of positive 1/3. And so here I have my perpendicular bisector. So let me use a ruler to make it nice. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so I found my perpendicular bisector. How do I write the actual equation? So my equation is, I already know the slope, and the graph makes it easy to see that my y-intercept is going to be 12. We'll talk about how to do that without the graph, but for now, that's the basic concept. So this line perpendicularly bisects the original segment that I was given. So we'll do one more example with the graph, and then I'll show you one example without a graph if you want to do the exceeds level. Okay, so here we go. Example 2. So take a minute. Let me tell you the coordinates of the points we're using so you can copy the graph down and see if you can solve most of this example yourself. So negative 6, 1 and 12, 13 are my 2 points. So make a nice graph and copy down these points and see if you can do most of the steps on your own to find the perpendicular bisector. Okay, let's start with step 1. So I want to find my midpoint. So let me draw in my slope triangle. And let's see. With such a big graph, it's easier for me to even just look at the coordinates. So 12 minus negative 6 is 18. So that's the change in my y. The change in my x. And then 13 minus 1 is 12. So to find my midpoint, I'm just going to go half of each of those. So half of 18 is 9. So if I take half of 18, I'm going to go over 9, and I'm going to go up 6. So let's see. Over 9 and up 6. So my midpoint is 3, 7. Okay, so step 2, I'm going to do my, I'm going to find the perpendicular line now. So let's figure out my slope. So it's positive 12/18. If you type that in your calculator, you're going to get like 0.66666, which I don't want to deal with. So I'm going to just reduce this fraction to 2/3. So that makes it easy to see my opposite reciprocal is going to be negative 3/2. So since I have my graph, I can just start at my midpoint. Let me erase this a little bit so I can see it better. Okay, so let me start at my midpoint. And I'm going to go over 2, down 3. Okay, and let's draw it in with a ruler. Looks looks like my y-intercept is going to be a decimal, but that's okay. I can handle that. Great. And so let's write our equation. It's y equals negative 3/2 x plus, and it looks like, well, let's see. It should hit right between 13 and 10. It looks like it's 11.5, but actually this is a good chance to practice finding the y-intercept using algebra. So let's set it up and see if we're right. So I'm going to say y equals negative 3/2 x plus b, and then I'm going to plug in, I'm going to go all the way back to my midpoint and plug that in, and let's see. And that will let me solve for b like algebraically, so I don't have to guess using the graph. So 7 equals negative 3/2 times 3 plus b. Yeah, and I can see, I think I will end up with a decimal because I have 7 equals negative 9/2 plus b. So 7 equals negative 4.5 plus b. Oof, not great handwriting there. Okay, 7 equals negative 4.5. Negative 4.5 plus b, and so yeah, I can see that b will equal to 11.5. So you can always, if your graph is hard to read or if you don't feel like doing the graph, you can always use the algebraic process that we learned earlier to find the y-intercept without the graph. And so I could see that my suspicion was right. This is the equation for my perpendicular bisector. Okay, I'm going to show you guys one more example that without the graph, or I'm sorry, without like the grid, so that you can hopefully kind of understand the process more algebraically. But this will be for exceed. So if this one doesn't make sense, we're just going to have graph ones on our exam. Okay, so step 1 is the midpoint. It also explains this in the midpoint video if you need to watch that one more time. Okay, so I'm going to look at my 2 points, and I'm going to start with my change in x. So negative 6 and 30, so I'll just do 30 minus negative 6. And so that's 36. Oof, my handwriting could be better. Great. And then I'll look at my y-coordinates. 17 and negative 55. And so what is that? Okay. Nope, it's not 38. 17 plus 55 is 72. Okay, so to find my midpoint, I'm going to do half of each of those numbers. So 36 divided by 2 is 18. 72 divided by 2 is 36. So I'm going to go over 18 and up 36. So let's figure out what point that gets me to. So to do that, I will do my x-coordinate minus 18. So 30 minus 18 puts me at 12 for my x-coordinate. And my y-coordinate plus 36. And so I get to, oof, I think that's negative 19. Let's see. Let's make sure. 55. Great. 19. So I found my midpoint. My midpoint is 12, 19. Let me just double check. Because if I do 17, oops, but it's got to be negative 19. Okay, because if I do 17 minus 36, yeah, okay, perfect. And then negative 6 plus 18. Okay, so I've got my midpoint. So now step 2, I'm going to work on my slope. I'm sorry, my perpendicular line, starting with slope. Sorry, you guys. Okay. Okay, so first let's do the slope of this. So I remember you already found the change in y and the change in x when you were finding the midpoint. So we can use those numbers to do the slope. So my slope is 72 over 36, and I can just see that this line is going downhill, right? So it's negative slope. And if I simplify that, it's negative 2 over 1. Okay, So my opposite reciprocal is positive 1/2. And here's where I have to use algebra, just like we checked on the last one. So I'm just going to set up the equation and plug in my midpoint. So I'm going to take y equals 1/2 x plus b. And then I'm going to use this midpoint. So I'll plug 12 in for x and negative 19 in for b. And so what does that get me? Negative 19 equals 1/2, 1/2 times 12 plus b. 1/2 of 12 is 6. Subtract 6 from both sides. So b is negative 25. So my final equation is, so this is the equation for the perpendicular bisector for this original segment that they gave me. So we'll keep practicing. You don't need to know how to do this third example for the basic level because it's really hard without the graph, but that would be for the exceeds level. We'll practice tomorrow in class before the quiz on Friday.